The Bird's Nest Orphanage was set up by a Danish missionary, Maria Jacobsen. She was an eyewitness to the Armenian genocide back in 1915. She was she rescued thousands of Armenian orphans and smuggled them out of Turkey where the genocide was taking place by the Ottoman Turks. And after 10 years, can you imagine 10 years of shepherding her orphans from country to place, she finally founded the Bird's Nest Orphanage back in 1926 or 1928, somewhere around that, in Byblos, about 35 kilometers north of Beirut. It was a small fishing town at the time, beautiful, picturesque, but now it's actually a major town now. My first memory of the orphanage was when I first arrived there in mid-1950s. It's like a dream, as if I'm looking at myself from the distance. There was this old woman who looked after me, bless her, Mrs. Osanna. She led me into a small stone room. There was a black stove there and burning with fire and crackling, and Mrs. Osanna helped me take off all my clothes. Here I stood here stark naked. She gathered all my clothes into a tight bundle and with a stick pushed them into the fire, presumably not to bring any diseases from the refugee camp. You know, it was so poignant when I saw my clothes catch fire. Something happened to me. I saw, of course, I imagined the face of the devil himself in the fire, his eyes melting, and he was sticking his tongue at me and making fun, poking fun at me. And I remember, because of that, I remember the enormous fire set alight at the refugee camp during the terrible plague, when people were falling down and dying while still vomiting. And the furniture of the dead was being hurled onto these mountains of a blaze, and the cocks on the tin roofs screeching most eerie shrieks in the middle of the night. Perhaps they were mistaking the actual sun for rising the sun in the middle of the night. So seeing my clothes catch fire in that stove, I felt the pain like no other, like being in a frozen fire. Because these were the very clothes my mother had mended many, many times, sitting by the oil lamp in our hut, in our tin hut, and in the refugee camp. And that was the first time that I felt a deep sense of separation from her, although I didn't quite understand what was happening at the time. My young throat contracted with pain, and I had the urge to cry, but couldn't. The pain was greater than my age, so it sunk deeper and hid itself like a camouflaged snake, never to surface. But in my later life, in my later years, it would strike, it will come to life and strike me at my most vulnerable moments. And I still don't know if I would ever be able to strangle the wretched beast and send its venomous carcass to where it came from. One day. Then, bless her, Mrs. Osanna said, "Butchie, Butchie," and gave me a generous hug. She said, "Don't look so sad, my little boy. You'll soon be breaking lots of hearts with those sad-looking brown eyes." She then helped me to stand on this big scale where sacks of potatoes they used to weigh, and weighed me. Then measured my height and began to record my possessions. 2 arms, 2 hands, no fingers missing. Then she declared something that would stick with me for the rest of my life. She said, "You are now 5 years old. And here I am, condemned never to know my true age. You see, I have no birth certificate. She gave me a second-hand scout shirt, no doubt was sent from Denmark, from the charity people, and a shirt to wear. And here I was, wearing this new outfit, standing barefoot under a vine canopy, watching children watching me. Then one of the boys asked me, "What's your number then?" he said. I didn't know what he meant, so I just stood there and said nothing. "Maybe he can't speak," another boy said. Then the other boy said, "Can you speak?" I nodded a yes. "Want to play?" the boy asked me. I shook my head no. Then a girl about my age, wearing wooden sandals far larger than her sockless feet, came clattering up to me and asked me, "What's your number then? Or what's your name then?" I said, "Vartan," with a muttered, very shy. She took a half-eaten apple from out of her pocket pouch, which was in her dress, in front of dress, full of fluff, and offered, "Want a bite?" I shook my head, no. "My name is Alice," she said, "but that's not my real name, you know." Then she held me by the hand and pulled me away from the other children playing. "We've got cows, we've got sheep, we've got chicken. I want to show them," she said, and took me to the far end of the boundary wall of the orphanage, passing the sports field, the chapel, the farm, the vegetable grounds, the cemetery, beyond which was the beach and the open sea. At the end of the sea, beyond the great bay, we could see the city of Beirut curving and forming part of the horizon in the distance. We sat together alone on that half-tumbled stone boundary wall, looking at the city beyond the great bay, hardly distinguishable in the late afternoon, in that grey silvery light. Away from the noise of the children playing there in that isolated of a place by the sea, the tranquility was absolute. It was so silent, as if it was a solitary place, which I actually cherished, that sense of loneliness and yet solitude and yet some joy in that. We sat there together for a while. The afternoon had already gone into sunset, and some of the lights of the city beyond the great bay began to sparkle in the sea like fluorescent fish. Pointing to the city, Alice said, "That's where they found me. I was a baby. I don't have a parents, but Maria Jacobson said that my mother is an angel, that I'm a daughter of an angel." And then she said, "Oh, the bell," she suddenly said. There was the distinct sound of a bell ringing. "Let's get back quickly," she said. "It's wash time." And that's how I spent my first evening at the Bird's Nest Orphanage, sitting alone with Alice on the stone boundary wall, watching the light of the city beyond the great bay. Then I met Maria Jacobson. This is the end of this episode. Don't forget to subscribe and to listen to the next episode. And don't forget to click the bell icon to be informed. Thank you.